All right, here to talk about Andy and what we learned, what we noticed through the OPEX body work and move, and some of his prescriptions that we have talked about going forward based on his goals and where he's at currently. So OPEX body, Andy is pretty lean. He's at 12% body fat. He is sort of, I guess, deemed an athletic individual, body weight of 172, and that actually will tie into a little bit of his goals moving forwards and the nutritional prescription as well. So I'll leave that there for now and we'll kind of circle back to it. OPEX move, Andy did really well. He passed everything. His scratch test was great. He was able to get full range of motion with both arms. He was symmetrical with both his left and his right. He didn't have to twist or do any contortions, any manipulations to achieve full range of mobility. He looked great. So I passed him on that. His air squat was great. He was able to reach full depth, no problem. He kept his torso upright. Feet were flat on the ground, knees tracked out over the toes. His hips were able to go back before they descended, which was great. He showed control on every single rep that he did. Same on the lunge. His lunge was great on both legs, again showing really good symmetry on his left leg and his right leg. The front foot stayed completely flat. The back leg stayed pivoted and up on the ball of the foot. It didn't have to, like I said, manipulate or anything like that for him to reach full depth, or in order to get himself up or down. He showed really good control and strength, sort of muscular endurance, just with the few reps that I had him do. Looked very easy. I think he could have done many more had I asked him to. The toe touch was just the trickiest one for him. He was just, by the third rep, he was just a centimeter or so away from the toes. I did give him a pass, but again, we will put that into the noticings that we have. But again, nice neutral, nice natural curve of the spine. He pushed his hips back before he went down. His legs stayed nice and locked out. His feet stayed flat on the ground. And like I said, by that third rep, the first two reps were pretty close, and that third rep, he was right there. So based on the rest of the movement test, the screening test, I did give him a pass on this, but again, a little sort of asterisk next to the toe touch, as he was just a little bit further away from the toes. The ASLR, great on both legs. Again, Andy just showed really good symmetry throughout this movement screen. His left leg and his right leg both moved up to a 90-degree angle to be perpendicular with the floor with no problem whatsoever. He didn't have to twist out the leg that was lying out. He didn't have to bend that knee. He didn't have to do anything with the hips or manipulate an arch in the back or anything like that. He was able to do that with control, with ease, and like I said, both legs were able to find that perpendicular 90-degree angle, no problem whatsoever. So the movement screening was great. I think the real noticing, the only sort of one to really sort of make a note of was just the toe touch. That was about it. The front plank and the reverse plank and both the side planks, he passed with flying colors. He was able to stay stacked on the side planks really well. The feet were stacked, the hips were stacked, the shoulders were stacked the entire time. He just had his other arm just lying on his body, and he had a really nice 90-degree angle with his elbow, which was right underneath his shoulder on both sides. He kept that really nice line from head to toe throughout. On the front plank, he was able to stay in perfect position from head to toe, really nice line again. Didn't have to sort of manipulate himself or rely more heavily on one side or the other. He didn't have to lean to one side. He was great in that really nice position throughout the entire 60 seconds. And despite not ever having done a reverse plank and sort of wondering how that would go, again, he passed that with flying colors. He had no problem facing the hands backwards, opening up those shoulders and really kind of pushing down there and making, again, that really nice line from head to toe that we're looking for. He was able to stay on his heels with his feet up the entire time, and his hips stayed up for the full 60 seconds. So that was great. So based on his goal, His goal is quite simply just to get stronger. So we're going to be putting in a lot of resistance work. He hasn't done much resistance work. He didn't sort of play formalized sports growing up, but he did do a lot of skateboarding. He's done a lot of snorkeling. He's just used his body a lot. He's currently a farmer, so he uses his body each and every single day for quite a large portion of time each day. And so that's one of my big noticings, is having spoken to him, his work day when he's in peak, in season as a farmer, is very intense. And he uses his body a lot. He never sits down unless he's on a tractor, but even that is quite grueling work. He's always up and off of it. He's always kind of having to move heavy machinery. So he really does use his body a lot. And so we've talked about, he has a family, he has this job, it's long hours. We have really talked about finding that right balance between making sure that we are approaching this with a sustainable, long-term, healthy approach, such that we can integrate some resistance work into his daily routine now, to try and integrate in a routine. And then as the off season approaches, or as it hits, we can then maybe kind of start talking a little bit more about upping the volume, depending on how, his feedback and how things are going. But that's a really, really big noticing, is right now he's just in the middle of farm season, and that takes up more than 12 hours a day. In terms of his nutrition and his behavior, we'll start with behavior. Behavior is great. He's outside all day, again, being a farmer. He is active, we have no worries there. And he loves going swimming with the kids. He loves going skateboarding with the kids. So he's playing a lot with, with his body and things like that, which is great. He goes to bed early just because he has such a long, grueling work day at the moment. He goes to bed pretty much the same time, wakes up at pretty much the same time. So the behavior there is okay. What I would like to really concentrate on initially is the nutrition. Because he is up so early and because he's out the door so early and then stays out, he really doesn't actually eat that much. So looking at his food log, he's eating a couple of his meals, but most predominantly he's missing his breakfast. He kind of just wakes up, has a coffee, and then shoots out the door for the rest of his day. And one of, I want to establish a more consistent nutrition plan with him. And so, occasionally, depending on the day, his normal work day might start around 5. On some days it might start at 3 a.m. And he has said, I just can't stomach food that early in the morning. It's basically the middle of the night. So we are going to start talking about maybe taking some kind of a smoothie with him, a protein smoothie, something like that with him, something on the go, such that, because by the time he then starts work, it's really difficult to stop a tractor in the middle of the field, because it's supposed to be a meal time, and then come traipsing all the way across the fields, go into the house, have his meal, and then go back out and pick up where he left off. So we've sort of talked about maybe some meal prepping, having something that he can stomach whenever he feels that might be, and then bringing that with him so that it's sort of maybe in a little lunch cooler that he can eat or drink depending on kind of how he feels in the morning. So have that coffee, but then take some food with him. Same thing kind of goes for lunch. He does generally come in mid-morning, but it's more like a late breakfast. But then because it's mid-morning, that sometimes fends off lunch as well. So again, similar thing, can he either meal prep so that when he comes in, there's something ready for him to eat, or can he bring it with him? And again, this really applies for, it's a long season, but the season that he is outdoors a lot of in the winter and early spring, late fall, that sort of colder period, it's much easier for him to be in and around the house. So we're really kind of addressing right now what we can do to try and actually just have him eat more, but also establish some more consistent routines when it comes to food. The actual food quality is really good. He also hunts, so he hunts for a lot of his own meat. being on the farm, they grow a lot of their own vegetables. And so the food quality is fantastic. He sits down, when he is at home, he sits down with the family and eats. They're very avert, they don't have a TV in the house, which is great, so there are no distractions there. And the only thing behavior-wise that we have talked about is he is on his phone a lot when he's not out in the fields doing work. A lot of that is work-related, so that's going to be something that we just maybe talk about. But the other thing is he very rarely has that downtime, so when he does, kind of escaping onto his phone just for a few minutes is actually quite sort of refreshing for him, in that he doesn't have to do something with his body. But we have sort of talked about when he does that, limiting at what point he starts to shut all that down when, you know, bedtime rolls around and whatnot. Obviously meal times, he doesn't have that on him anyway. So really, to sum it up, he passed his movement and his body, his movement and his work screen very well with flying colors, based on the goals that he has, which is to get stronger. We're going to really actually concentrate on the nutrition more than anything. We're going to integrate some resistance things. The resistance work that we will integrate during the week is going to be full body, so we'll be able to hit all the areas: the squat, push, pull, lunge, single leg, all that kind of stuff. We'll be able to hit that every session. But like I said, we'll start fairly light, and then with his feedback, we'll incorporate how we can move forwards based on the workload that he has on the farm, and then moving into that more kind of off season, whether we can increase the load a little bit, the volume a little bit, again, all based on the feedback that I'm getting from him, and also making sure that the nutrition is on point, because right now I don't think he's eating enough calories as it is. So then to add in extra sort of volume work with the resistance wouldn't work out. So we're really going to concentrate on the nutrition and go from there.